I think love in all its guises is a topic that consumes a lot of my time lately. And I spend a lot of time thinking, where did the love go? Because when I grew up in the 90s, so much of our culture, music, art, movies, was all about love. Maybe romantic love too much, but everything was about love. Whether it was boys to men pining away and crying over
Mm.
a breakup and just everything was dominated by love.
The End of the Road.
They
Wonderful song.
would come back down on bended knees,
Exactly, exactly.
but that is completely absent, I feel, for a generation coming up. The best they can do is, love as in sex, and that's really all I see that's being presented to them. Intimacy, commitment, family, all of these things seem to be missing. Where do you think we went wrong?
Well, what you're saying, Sophia, is really true. There's actually research on this that's found that if you look, for example, in popular songs, the usage of the word love has like been cut in half over the last few decades, and actually, negative emotions are now being expressed much more than positive. But even if you look over time, you see that more and more negative emotions as opposed to a few decades ago, and much less positive emotions being shared in our popular songs. So yeah, I think there is. I mean, the whole idea of like a lot of people. It's not just young people; it's older people too that that are kind of pursuing sex rather than love. Is it this idea that, well, sex will lead to love, but that generally doesn't happen. It's usually the other way around. And I think it's often about the short-term fix. The way I say it is that there's a distinction I make between fun and fuel.
Mhm,
Fun stands for fulfilling us now,
mhm.
and fuel stands for fulfilling us even later. And I see a lot of people today, especially young people, it's all about what's going to fulfill me right now, and that's what's fun, and that's what I'm going to do. But then uh, later, there are complaints like my life hasn't gone in the direction that I want it to go in, which is why we're seeing this sort of skyrocketing anxiety and depression among young people, all ages, but especially young people. Also, loneliness. It's really sad. Like the Gallup came out with a world happiness report just recently, and in the U.S. and Western Europe, the least happy people are the youngest generation.
Wow.
And I attribute that to, on some level, to these things. We're trying to communicate with our phones and with our laptops and tablets instead of communicating face to face, and that's just not leading to it's not leading to like healthy lives for many young people. I did a study recently in a middle school and found that some of what young people are sharing about their screens and about the way their parents use their screens, it's just depressing, actually. I mean, I have one quote of young guys in sixth grade saying, "I'm lonely. I have no friends. I love my phone." And then I've got another one who's also well, a fifth grader, and he's sharing. He says that he really wants to spend time with his father, but the power of scrolling on his phone is just too powerful for his father. And so you just see like how this is all taking place. We can't point the finger at young people because we're the ones who have set up this like digitally mediated environment we're in. We
Yeah.
say we point the finger at one person, we have three pointed back at ourselves, and
Yes.
and we have to take responsibility for what's happening and turn it around while we can.
Yeah. I'm finding it such a struggle, actually. If I speak for myself, I notice that I have to check my own, narcissism that comes from the Instagram life. Now, I've grown up without the internet. I can't imagine what the challenges are for somebody who has literally no memory or no wiring in their brain for a life without a phone, a life without the internet.
Well, that's it. I mean, there's so much has changed, and if we look, I'll ask your viewers, like, what do you think the number one reported emotion of Facebook users is?
Anxiety,
And what's that?
anxiety, I would say, no?
Anxiety is very high, depression, loneliness. but the number one reported emotion is envy. And
Envy.
so what happens is this is this narcissism you're talking about that we all have, Sophia. We all want to be, we want to be recognized. We want to feel worthy. We want to be approved of. We want to be accepted. We want to belong. And so we go on social media and we post pictures and post anything to flatter ourselves. So men tend to post pictures after they buffed up. They've been exercising all week. Women tend to post photos where they haven't been eating for a week, and
Mhm.
they even use there's shrinking software that sometimes some women use, and
Mhm.
it's all showing this kind of misrepresentation of ourselves intended for others to accept us.
Mhm.
And then the irony is that you go on social media and you go on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, and you see pictures of like the one picture from a friend's week-long family vacation where everyone's smiling. And then you say, well, why doesn't my family smile like that? Why are we so miserable? And
Yes.
so we feel worse about ourselves. So this dates back. We want to consider what it was it like before the internet. Let's take a look at what was it like before the predecessor of the internet, one of the predecessors, which was the television.
Mhm.
So Karen Hennigan, social psychologist, did this study in the late 1970s where she looked at in the United States in 1951 was when the television was first introduced and sold.
Okay.
And there were 47 municipalities where the local governments said, we're not accepting the TV. Like, that's not coming here. Like, we don't want all these outside influences. So, no TVs in our small towns or cities. And so, what Hennigan and her colleagues did is they examined those 47 towns and cities with 47 similar towns and cities where the television was introduced. And what they found is that in the 47 cities where the TV was allowed to be sold in 1951, there was this huge upsurge in petty crime and misdemeanors like pickpocketing, stealing bicycles. And what they found the reason was because all of a sudden, what people were seeing on their televisions, all these other people who had like yachts and private jets and better clothing, more expensive clothing than they did, and so forth. And so bigger cars. And so they said, well, why aren't our lives like that? And then they started taking from others. And so then what was interesting is in the 47 towns and cities, the many municipalities where the TV was not introduced, there was no increase. But 4 years later, there was a federal overruling of these local bans saying, you can't ban our citizens from having TVs. So in these other 47 cities in 1955, finally the television could be sold. And you know what they found?
Yeah.
The same upsurge in petty crime misdemeanors following the introduction of the TV in those towns. So we go online seeking social information,
Mhm.
but sorry, I'm sorry, I mixed that up.
Oh,
We go online seeking social connection. We want to connect with others. We want to belong. We want to be accepted. But we end up with this social information, which instead of making us feel accepted and like we belong, it just compounds those feelings of loneliness and depression and anxiety. And that's kind of part of what's gotten us to where we are today.
well, would you say it's different seeing someone on screen who's much, better off than you? Because I'm just thinking if I go by that, walking around London, there's a million people better dressed than me on any given day who look, so wealthy compared to me. What's the difference with that, would you say? Because we were always surrounded by neighbors who are wealthier than us, who are doing better than us,
Mhm.
maybe their children were better behaved, all of the things we desire. How's that different?
Well, Sophia, so this goes back to Leon Fessinger's research, the social psychologist, on social comparison, which is a concept he came up with, which is that when we feel insecure about ourselves and we want to feel worthy, we want to increase our self-esteem, we
Mhm.
try to find other people similar to us, and
Mhm.
then we compare ourselves with them. And we want to find people that we compare ourselves favorably with. So we're like, oh, that person is so miserable, I feel better about myself, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So we always have done that as human beings. So the difference is that when people go on social media, um, they don't get the positive elements of human interaction. They
Wow.
just get the social comparison. So you go on there and now you see your high school friends and others around your age, and why are they so successful and good looking and
Yes.
wealthy and I'm not?
Yes.
And And so this is the thing is that in the end, like we turn off our screen and we're just sitting there alone and
Mm,
lonely.
mm.
Versus like, okay, let me go out with a friend who's doing really well. Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was doing as well as he is in certain domains, but you know what? I'm also glad that he's my friend or she's my friend. I mean, we enjoyed our time together. And so that kind of offsets the negative feelings of social comparison.
Oh, that's such a good explanation. Because again, if you went to lunch with the friend that you envy, they would also tell you all the difficulties of the job they're
Mm.
in, of the marriage that, gave you the highlight reel. So you would go away and you would humanize them. Oh,
Yeah, imagine Sophia that someone you meet a friend for lunch. Let's call her Maria. So Maria sits down and says, Sophia, guess what? My husband is so cute. Oh
mhm.
my God, he's doing so well in his job. My kids are adorable. My daughter is singing in the school choir. And I mean, this is the way we communicate on social media,
Mhm. That's
right?
true. That's
So
really,
no one communicates like that in person. You know why? Because no one's going to go to lunch with you again if you do,
yeah.
you know?
Oh, we have. So you're saying we're actually very antisocial on social media. We just brag all the time. Look at me, look at my beautiful lunch that I had, look at the clothes I'm wearing, look at, the makeup and how I did my makeup today.
Yeah, I mean, as I write about this in my last book, Screened In, The Art of Living Free in the Digital Age, that social media is not social and it's not media. So first of all, for the reason we're talking about, it's antisocial. It's not social, but also it's not media as we consider media. I mean, sharing what you had for lunch is not media. The reason we have like curators of popular media, like yourself in your video podcast here, Sophia, or like magazine and newspaper editors, is because they filter through all of the information and
Mm,
try to find, well, what's really the news we're sharing,
mm,
and sharing that you just graduated, or that you I mean that's actually kind of worthy. But a lot of what we share about, like, hey, here, here's a picture of us dancing last night at this club, like, okay, that is kind of interesting, but is that really, like, at what level are we oversharing? And I think 99% of what we see on social media would fit that description.
that's so interesting. I'm so glad you highlighted that because I think we all feel the effect of it. We're not able to put it into words,